Hi everybody, Bearded Rogue here, and this week in Vlogust is going to be my Euros week. So I figured I'd start off with one of my favorite Euro games of all time, Castles of Burgundy by Stefan Feld. Castles of Burgundy is probably one of the ugliest games in my collection, and I don't care. Because the gameplay in this game sucked me in from the first round of the first time I've played it, and it's now officially a game that I will never turn down, that I absolutely love, and that I recommend to everybody. I think this game has something for everyone, regardless of your typical gaming interests. It's not a card game, which is a rarity for me. I don't have very many games that aren't card games, but this one really hits all of my Euro game desires. So let's go into what the three things I love about Castles of Burgundy are. So the first thing that I absolutely love about Castles of Burgundy is these. Castles of Burgundy uses dice. And very few Euro games use dice, although more these days are using dice now that it's been discovered that these can do more than just randomize results. Castles of Burgundy uses dice in a way that I really prefer in role-playing as well. There are kind of two ways that dice work in a role-playing game. Either dice determine the result, wherein you say, I'm going to do X, and then you roll to see if you succeed or fail. Or, the better way, in my opinion, is dice determine your options. In this case, you roll the dice, and then the results of the dice give you the options that you get to choose from. And Castles of Burgundy is all about that. The reason Castles of Burgundy succeeds where a lot of other games with dice and randomness fail is because it gives you so many options from rolling your dice. You can roll your dice and you can place things on your little player board. You have to roll the die number in order to be able to place there. So you can keep up to 3 tiles. Roll the number, and you can use that die to place one of the tiles you have in the locations on your map that correspond to it. As you can see, there's a very large quantity of these, and they all kind of touch each other, so you could have areas opened up in multiple places on your board that let you use one die result. In addition, on the main player board, or on the main board that's not a player board, all of these different areas correspond to a die face, and they have things that you can take to add to your board. And all of those things, there's a whole bunch of those options. In addition, there are the goods that you can ship, which correspond to die faces as well, as you get those. And if you are really at a loss for how to use your dice, at the very least, you can spend 1 die to get these workers, which let you mitigate your die rolls. They let you add plus or minus 1 to any of your die rolls in the future. You have 2 dice every round, so even if you have to use one of them to make the other one exactly what you need, all of your dice will always serve a purpose. You can always use all of them. And because you're rolling dice and choosing what to do with them, while player skill is a very large factor, people who have played this game will win more often than people who have not. People who have a lot of experience with this game will beat people who are not experienced. However, it adds that little curve into it that messes up the optimal play strategies for other Euro games. A Euro game that I do not like, Castles, has very clear strategies and pathways for how you should play that game. And if you play outside of those, then you are just going to lose, and potentially even be decimated. It's very unforgiving. Castles of Burgundy is a very forgiving design for new players. So even people who are a little intimidated by it at first, less than halfway through the first turn of the game, everybody's going, okay, I dig this, I can do this, and everybody ends up fairly close in the scoring, even though the people who've played before are much more likely to win. So, dice. it uses dice, and that's the first thing I love about Castles of Burgundy. The next thing I love about Castles of Burgundy is chaining actions. So, again, whenever you place a tile on your board, you can get an action based on what that tile is. And these can be chained together, and should be, in optimal play, chained together. So you could get a tile that lets you place another building tile, and then place a building tile that lets you place another tile, and then that tile will let you place another tile. And you can chain these actions together, so even though you only ostensibly get 2 actions a turn from your dice, you could take 5, 6, 7 actions in one turn just by chaining your actions together and planning ahead. It's really rewarding when you use one die to plot a whole chain of actions on your turn that leads to filling up your player board, or gathering multiple cities, or gathering multiple tiles, or completing sections of your board. Like, it just in general. That's a really rewarding feeling when you can chain actions together. And this game lets you chain actions better than any that I can think of off the top of my head. There are some other Euro games that are very much built that way, where one action leads to another, but this one really emphasizes that. Like, that's the key to good gameplay, is stringing actions together. And so that's really satisfying to me. It's almost like programming, but not as, like, locked in as programming, because if somebody takes the thing that you need, you can maybe able to find a different way to do the same thing you wanted to do, but using slightly different numbers, or using a slightly different tile. So, again, going back to this is a more forgiving Euro game than a lot of them. It really offers you multiple paths, even to the same result. Not just to victory, but even to the same result that you were looking to accomplish. You just have to be able to see them. So, I really love chaining actions in this game. And then, last but not least, the third thing that I love about this game is actually the player board and building your kingdom. There's a lot said about how Ameritrash, Ameritreasure, Amerithrash, whatever you want to call them, games are all about destruction, and Euro games are all about building things. And in this game, you really do end up creating, like, you fill in all these little spaces, and your kingdom, your region, looks completely different than everybody else's. It has to. You have to focus on different things than the other people, otherwise you're stepping on each other's toes. But you'll have a completely unique board at the end of your game. And if you play a second game of it right after it, that board will be different than the board you had in the game prior. There's a lot of tactical elements to it, in addition to strategy, and that means that at the end of the game you can actually look at what you've created and all of the progress that led up to all of the points that you scored. So you're not just going around the score track arbitrarily gaining points. You're actually building something, and you're encouraged to build something that will let you build something else. Again, going back to the chaining actions that I like is point number 2. Like, this game, all of the parts fit together really, really well. It's extremely solid. It's lots of fun. Ignore the fact that it kind of looks like a Microsoft Paint program and a spreadsheet made it and produced a game artwork, because it really is that good. Like, this is a game that I will play with anybody, anytime, and I highly recommend it to everyone. One of my favorite Euro games of all time, Castles of Burgundy. That's it for this episode. Join me tomorrow when we discuss the next Euro game in Euro Week for Vlogust. Bearded Rogue, signing out.